She dropped the mop and the clang echoed through the marble hallway like a gunshot. Leah Stone Novacor's icy VP of Operations spun around and snapped, "Do you even know how to clean?" In that moment, unseen, unrecognized, humiliated Danielle Whitman, the CEO of the entire company, looked her in the eye and said nothing. Hi, everyone. Today we're diving into a story that will shake you. A story about power, privilege, and the people we overlook every day. It starts at the very top of one of the most successful companies in Silicon Valley and ends in a basement where truth can't hide. A powerful CEO, beloved by the media and idolized by the industry, takes a journey that no one could have predicted. Because when you're surrounded by applause, it's easy to forget who's still sitting in silence. This could happen to anyone, even you. So before we dive into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Let's begin. The applause was thunderous. In the glittering main auditorium of NovaCore Systems, America's most admired tech company, CEO Danielle Whitman, stood quietly on stage as senior executives clapped and raised glasses. The LED wall behind her flashed record-breaking earnings charts, arcing upward like rockets. Cameras snapped, champagne corks flew. The press dubbed her the quiet genius of Silicon Valley. Danielle, now 48, was no stranger to accolades. As a black woman in a field still dominated by white men, she had shattered every ceiling imaginable. From her early days coding in a Georgia public library to heading a trillion-dollar empire, the story of Danielle Whitman was the stuff of business school legend. And yet, as confetti rained down, a chill settled in her bones. She looked out over her team, flawless in tailored suits, sipping French champagne, reciting the mantra, innovation, disruption, excellence. But what she felt wasn't pride, it was distance. A yawning chasm between this room and the building that housed it. A void that numbers couldn't fill. Back in her glass-walled office that evening, Danielle opened her email. A subject line jumped out, urgent. Q2 employee satisfaction survey results. She clicked and froze. Red heat maps, dropping morale, anonymous comments like bullets, "I feel invisible." No one here listens unless you're wearing designer clothes. Management only promotes those who drink with them. Her jaw tightened. This wasn't the NovaCore she thought she'd built. This wasn't the family she had once promised her founding team. It wasn't just discontent, it was betrayal. The betrayal of values she swore to protect. For hours, Danielle sat in silence, reading every word, every plea for dignity buried beneath professional phrasing. She could hear them, dozens, maybe hundreds of unheard voices whispering beneath the hum of success. That night she didn't sleep. She watched the city lights flicker below her penthouse window and remembered something her grandmother once told her. If you want to know who a person really is, don't ask their boss. Ask the one who scrubs their floors. By morning, Danielle knew what she had to do. At 7:14 a.m., she met with two of her most trusted allies, Victor Lin, 50, her COO, a sharp strategist who had stuck with her through recessions, acquisitions, and near burnout, and Maya Chen, 42, her head of ethics and culture, relentless, idealistic, and unshakably loyal. She spoke softly but firmly. "I need to disappear." Victor blinked. "What do you mean, disappear? I'm not going to fix this from the top floor," she said. "I need to see it with my own eyes. I'm going undercover." Maya frowned. Undercover where Danielle stood, crossed to the window, as a janitor. Lowest on the chain. Silence. Victor let out a breath. "That's extremely risky. That's exactly why it's necessary," she said. "I want to hear what's said when the CEO isn't in the room. I want to know how we're treating people when no one's watching." What followed was a whirlwind. New ID Debbie Carter, age 52, recently relocated from Mobile, Alabama. Previous jobs in manual labor, mild back issues, no digital footprint. Danielle chopped off her long curls. Maya found her an old pair of orthopedic sneakers and a faded green custodial uniform. Victor liaised with a contracted cleaning service who didn't ask too many questions. A week later, Danielle walked into NovaCore through the south loading dock, not the executive lobby with its marble floors and espresso bar, but the back corridor that smelled like ammonia and fried onions. Tim, the security guard, barely looked up. "Badge," she handed it over. He scanned it. Basement level 2. Janitorial rooms down the hall, second left. And just like that, the most powerful woman in the company vanished. In her place stood Debbie Carter, middle-aged, brown-skinned, slightly hunched, pushing a rickety cleaning cart down a hallway she once helped design. Nobody noticed her. Nobody said hello. Nobody asked how she was doing. It didn't take long to see what the real Novacor had become. The janitorial break room was nothing like Danielle remembered from the facilities tour years ago. No ergonomic chairs, no snack fridge, just a flickering fluorescent light and the faint stench of bleach soaked into the tile. A corkboard hung crooked above the rusted filing cabinet papers, pinned carelessly, cleaning rotations, safety warnings, a faded photo of a former staffer no one mentioned anymore. Doris, the shift supervisor, was the first to acknowledge her. Mid-50s Mexican-American hair pinned high in a no-nonsense bun. She didn't smile. "You the new one?" Doris asked flatly, eyes scanning Danielle's uniform. "Charlie said you'd be older." "Whatever. Mop's in the corner. Don't mix the ammonia with the degreaser or you'll pass out cold." Danielle nodded, adjusting her name tag Debbie Carter. No one would call her Danielle here. She spent the first day learning routes, offices, hallways, break rooms, scrubbing toilets while overhearing casual conversations, emptying trash while people talked about weekend plans or rolled their eyes about cleaning delays. Most didn't acknowledge her. Some made awkward eye contact, then looked away. But the real pain came from what she saw behind the smiles. She met Marcus Green in the basement utility corridor, a Novacor janitor for over 12 years, tall and soft-spoken with kind eyes that had seen too much. His limp suggested old injuries, and his eyes, though polite, never lingered on hope. They were restocking supply carts when Marcus winced and sat down on a milk crate, rubbing his knees. "Bad day," Danielle asked gently, her southern drawl practiced and unassuming. He gave a tired chuckle. "It's always bad, Debbie. Just depends on which part of your body complains the loudest." Later that night, when most employees had gone home, she saw him crouched in the stairwell with his head in his hands. She approached slowly. Marcus wiped his face quickly. "Long week," he muttered. "Wife's in the hospital again. HR said they can't intervene in personal financial matters. Gave me a brochure about budgeting." Can you believe that Danielle's heart sank? The company had sent him a flyer while his world was falling apart. The next morning, she was mopping the glass corridor outside the engineering wing when she overheard laughter. Inside the meeting room, a group of managers were chuckling over coffee. "I swear, if Ruben shows up to the pitch wearing that corduroy blazer again, I'm walking out," a young voice snorted. "Can we please talk about his accent?" another added. "No one understands a damn thing after the third sentence." Danielle looked up just as Ruben Mehta, the subject of their mockery, shuffled past her with a folder in hand. He was 55, an Indian-American software architect who had built some of Novacor's earliest systems. Ruben's eyes met hers for a fleeting second. Then he looked down, quickened his pace. Later, Danielle saw him eating alone in the far corner of the cafeteria, flipping through handwritten notes while others avoided his table. The next day, Elaine Morris, 62, a veteran project manager with a thick file of accomplishments, was asked by a junior exec if she needed help finding the Zoom link for a team call. Danielle caught the tension in Elaine's jaw, the sharp intake of breath. But Elaine only nodded and said, "Thank you, dear," before retreating to her corner office, now positioned far from main traffic. Age, accent, clothing. The judgments were fast and brutal. Danielle was beginning to understand that at Novacor, the walls didn't just have windows, they had filters. And if you didn't fit the image, youthful Ivy League, polished, socially connected, you were slowly erased. Then came Chandra Fields. Danielle first noticed her working late in the finance department. A black woman in her early 40s, always sharply dressed, eyes weary but focused. One night around 9 p.m., Danielle was cleaning a conference room when Chandra stepped out of a call phone still in her hand. "Okay, baby," Chandra whispered, pressing the phone close. "The microwave popcorn is on the second shelf. Remember to eat something green. Mama's sorry she's late again." When the call ended, Chandra stood there silently gazing at the dark window as if it held answers. Danielle didn't say a word, just watched quietly. The next morning, Danielle overheard two analysts talking near the coffee station. "She's sharp, but doesn't hang out with the execs," one said. "Yeah, she's too quiet. Not team-building material." Danielle's hands clenched around the mop handle. Team-building material. The woman carried 3 departments' financial reconciliations on her back, worked twice as late, sacrificed her time with her child, and all they saw was quiet. The most stinging encounter came near the executive elevator. Danielle was wiping down handrails when she dropped a rag. It made a dull slap on the floor. That's when Leah Stone appeared, NovaCore's VP of Operations. Perfect posture, tight ponytail, nails like glass daggers, and eyes that passed over Danielle like she wasn't human. "Do you not know how to clean a railing?" Leah snapped, annoyed. "I'm sorry," Danielle mumbled, keeping her head down. Leah scoffed. "If I have to report this, I will. I don't tolerate sloppiness, even from the mop crew." As she stalked off, a young assistant nearby chuckled. "Some people really don't belong here." Danielle had never felt so degraded. Not in boardrooms. Not in college. Not even in the early days of founding NovaCore when banks laughed her out of meetings. This hurt deeper, because it was her own house. And somehow, without meaning to, she had let it rot. And yet in all that decay, there were still lights shining. She met Jared Thompson on her 4th day. He was rebooting a server crouched behind a desk when Danielle came in to sweep. Young mid-30s, black bright eyes that smiled before his lips did. He stood, wiped his hands, and said, "Hey there, you're the new janitor, right?" Debbie Danielle was stunned. No one had bothered to remember her name all week. "Yes, sir," she said softly. Sir Jared laughed. "I'm just Jared. You doing okay? These hallways can be brutal on the knees." He offered her a bottle of water and walked her through the break room locations she hadn't found yet. "You'd be surprised," he said. "Most of this company runs because of folks like you. And me on good days." Over the next week, Danielle noticed Jared knew everyone's name. The guards, the interns, the cafeteria staff. He checked in on people, helped troubleshoot IT issues he wasn't assigned to, listened without checking his watch. NovaCore had a soul. It was buried, but it was still alive. Danielle was beginning to realize her mission wasn't just to expose what was broken, it was to protect what was still good. The deeper Danielle descended into the quiet, forgotten world of NovaCore's working class, the more she began to see the truth that had long been buried under polished performance reviews and glittering launch events. The truth didn't live in quarterly charts or award showcases. It lived in the whispered conversations over vending machine coffee. It breathed in the eyes of those who stayed late without complaint and left early only to care for ailing parents or young children. By the end of her 2nd week, Danielle knew every stairwell and service corridor like the back of her hand. She moved silently between departments, always listening, always observing. And it was in these quiet places that she discovered the real architects of NovaCore's survival. Jared Thompson, the kind IT technician who'd been the first to remember her name, continued to surprise her with his compassion. She watched him fix a junior developer's broken monitor without being asked. Another time, he stayed after hours to help a security guard's son set up a college application on an old laptop. One afternoon, Danielle noticed him sitting beside Elaine Morris, the veteran project manager, at lunch. Elaine looked surprised but comforted. The way Jared laughed with her, gently asking about her early days at NovaCore, made something soften in her expression. For the first time, Danielle saw Elaine smile. Later that day, Danielle caught up with Jared in the hallway. "You spend a lot of time helping folks," she said, testing the waters. Jared shrugged. "It's how I was raised. You walk through a place, you leave it better than you found it. Doesn't matter if it's a hallway or a heart." Danielle wanted to hug him. Instead, she nodded. "That's rare these days, shouldn't be," Jared replied. "But yeah, it is." Meanwhile, Chandra Fields kept showing up before sunrise and leaving long after sunset. Danielle would often find her under dim overhead lights, surrounded by budget sheets and performance metrics. One night, Chandra was rubbing her temples at her desk when Danielle emptied her trash. Chandra looked up startled, then smiled faintly. "You ever get that feeling, Debbie, like, no matter how much you give, it's still not enough?" Danielle paused. "Every single day." Chandra laughed, the sound edged with pain. "Good to know I'm not the only one." Danielle leaned on the cart. "You got kids." Chandra nodded toward a small photo taped to her monitor. "Isaiah, 9 years old, smart as a whip. He wants to be an engineer. I want him to know he can even if I got to carry every finance report in this building to get him there. Danielle's heart cracked open a little more. But while the quiet ones held Novacor together, the cold machinery of power kept turning overhead. Leah Stone, the VP of Operations, continued her reign of elitist indifference. She was quick to scold, quick to judge, always on brand and obsessed with performance optics. One afternoon, Danielle overheard her berating a department lead during a team huddle. "We're not running a community center here," Leah snapped. "We're shaping a world-class image. If someone doesn't match the vision visually or culturally, they don't belong." Danielle felt the blood rise in her face. How many people had been discarded because they didn't match this image? She knew of at least 5, probably more. And then there was Colin Reyes, the young up-and-coming tech director who wore ambition like armor. He'd been touted as Novacor's future. But from what Danielle saw, he was the present's biggest threat. When Jared raised a concern during a sprint meeting, pointing out that rushing a new software update without proper testing might create user vulnerabilities, Colin dismissed him flatly. "You worry too much," Colin sneered. "Perfection is the enemy of progress. But these bugs could affect client data." Jared pushed gently. "If we rush this, I said it's fine," Colin snapped. "And if you want to keep your seat at the table, I suggest you learn when to stop talking." Jared's face fell. Danielle, just outside the door cleaning the floor, felt like she'd been punched in the gut. That night, she wrote down Jared's name on a crumpled napkin and added it to her growing list next to Marcus, Chandra, Elaine Rubin, and Angela. From accounting, a quiet but fierce woman she'd only just started to notice. Angela Brown, like the others, didn't speak loudly or often, but Danielle observed her closely. Always on time, always cleaning up others' financial errors. One evening, she overheard 2 younger finance analysts whispering about her. "She's good, but she never goes out for drinks," one said. "Yeah," the other added, "she doesn't socialize. Total ghost. That's why she'll never make manager." Danielle wrote that down too. At home, she laid the notes out on her kitchen table, scribbled names, quotes, dates. Each one a thread in the company's unseen fabric, a tapestry of endurance, of pain, of silent dignity. Daniel, her husband, watched her quietly. "You look like you're building a case," he said gently. "I am," Danielle whispered. "Not against people, against a system." A few nights later, Marcus didn't show up for the late shift. When Danielle asked Doris, she simply said, "He's out. Some kind of emergency. HR's not saying much." Danielle dug around quietly. From the security guard downstairs, she learned Marcus had collapsed at home. Stress, hypertension, overwork. He'd been skipping meals, the guard said. Told me he was rationing groceries to cover his wife's prescriptions. Danielle clenched her jaw. She had founded Novacor to be different. It was supposed to be a place where people mattered, where every contribution, big or small, was seen. Instead, Marcus had given 12 years of his life and was now lying in a hospital bed while HR shuffled pamphlets like paper shields. That was the final straw. That night, Danielle emailed Victor and Maya. Subject: assemble the auditorium. Monday, 9 a.m. sharp. Mandatory. Message: no media, no PR. Just us. It's time. She didn't say what she planned, but they knew. And for the first time in weeks, Danielle, still dressed in her janitor's uniform, slept soundly. Monday morning arrived like a storm cloud. Word of the surprise all-hands meeting spread through Novacor like wildfire. An email from the CEO's office, short, strict, and unexpected, commanded every employee from engineers to security staff to report to the main auditorium by 9:00 a.m. sharp. Attendance was mandatory, no excuses, no context given. Rumors flew. Is it a product launch? No, it's probably a mass layoff. Did the board fire someone big? Even Leah Stone and Colin Reyes, always composed, seemed rattled. They whispered in corners and checked their phones constantly, as if searching for a clue in thin air. But nothing could prepare them or anyone else for what was coming. The auditorium was packed. Rows upon rows of chairs filled with employees in polo suits and Novacor-branded hoodies. The lighting buzzed. A faint tension hung in the air like a held breath. At 9:02 a.m., the side door opened, and in walked Danielle Whitman. But not the Danielle everyone knew. She wore no designer suit, no high heels, no makeup. Her hair was cropped short, her uniform the same faded green janitorial outfit she'd been wearing for the past month. The name tag still read Debbie. Gasps rippled through the audience. Mouths fell open. Whispers turned into stunned silence. Danielle stepped onto the stage slowly, deliberately, and walked to the center without a script. She looked out over the sea of faces, some shocked, some confused, others beginning to realize just who Debbie had been all along. She gripped the microphone. Her voice when it came was low but unmistakably firm. You're probably wondering why the CEO of Novacor is standing here in a janitor's uniform. A beat of silence. It's because for the past 30 days, I've been one. She paused. And during those 30 days, I learned more about this company than in the previous 3 years combined. The room went still. Danielle reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled stack of notes. Scraps of napkin-torn paper, sticky notes. The audience watched frozen as she began to read. Marcus Green, maintenance team, 12 years of loyal service, wife hospitalized, collapsed at home from exhaustion. HR handed him a budget brochure. A gasp. Elaine Morris, 62 years old, senior project manager, quietly excluded from key meetings by colleagues who think experience is a liability. Whispers. Ruben Mehta, architect of our earliest systems, mocked for his accent, dismissed for his appearance. Eyes widened. Angela Brown, financial analyst, works late, fixes others' mistakes, raises a child alone. Overlooked for promotions because she doesn't socialize. Several heads turned toward the finance department. Jared Thompson, IT technician, helps interns and janitors without being asked, treated as an outlier for being kind. Danielle's gaze moved across the front rows. And then there's Chandra Fields, she said, voice cracking slightly, sacrificing her evenings with her son so Novacor's spreadsheets stay balanced. Her reward labeled too quiet, not enough of a team player. The room fell into a profound hush. Danielle's voice dropped to a whisper. Everything I just shared, I witnessed it. I lived it. I heard the jokes. I saw the side glances. I felt the silence. She stepped forward. And now I want to address some of the people who helped shape that silence. Her eyes locked on Leah Stone, who sat frozen in the third row, face-pale lips pressed into a line. Leah, Danielle said gently, do you remember berating the janitor in the hallway for dropping a rag? Leah's eyes welled with tears. She couldn't speak. That was me, Danielle said. You told me I wasn't worth fixing mistakes for, that I didn't belong. She turned her gaze on Colin Reyes, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Colin, you dismissed Jared's concerns about software vulnerabilities. You told him to stop playing hero, that risking our client's trust was worth saving your deadline. Danielle looked down at the sea of faces, some red with shame, some lit with tears, others still stunned. I built Novacor with a dream, she said, a dream where people mattered, where everyone, no matter their role, was treated with respect. I see now how far we've drifted. A pause. And I take responsibility. Gasps. A CEO admitting fault publicly, willingly. I became too focused on the metrics, too impressed by awards, too blind to the warning signs that were there all along. And for that, I'm sorry. Danielle took a deep breath. But apologies aren't enough. She tapped her notes. Starting today, this company will change. Not through slogans, but through actions. She raised her hand. The big screen behind her lit up. Reform One, anonymous reporting portal, a confidential system reviewed by third-party ethics advisors. Anyone who experiences mistreatment, regardless of department, will have a safe place to speak. Reform 2, Emergency Employee Fund. No more brochures. We're creating a real financial assistance program for anyone in crisis. Housing, medical bills, emergencies, no one is left alone. Reform 3, Promotion, Transparency. All hiring and advancement decisions will be based on merit, performance, and peer evaluation. No more backroom decisions. No more favoritism. Reform 4, Leadership Rehabilitation. All executives, including myself, will undergo intensive empathy and ethics training. Anyone with a record of abuse or exclusion will be reassigned. She turned to Leah. You'll be leading a mentorship program for underrepresented employees, Leah. You'll work face-to-face with those you once ignored. Leah covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Reform 5. Table talks with the CEO. Every week I will meet with randomly selected staff from every department. We'll talk over coffee, no filters, no agendas, just truth. The crowd was silent, and then slowly one clap, then another, then a swell. Applause broke like a wave rolling over the room. It wasn't polite, it wasn't forced, it was raw, real. Danielle stepped back from the microphone, eyes moist but unwavering. "You've seen me in two uniforms," she said, "as CEO and as janitor. I ask you to remember both, because only by honoring every person in this building at every level can we be proud of what we build." She stepped down, walking past rows of stunned, inspired faces. And as she passed Jared, Chandra, Marcus, Elaine, and Angela, she met each of their eyes with a silent promise. "I saw you, and now so does everyone else." The changes Danielle set in motion weren't slow. They were immediate, and they were felt in every corner of Novacor. By Tuesday morning, the entire culture of the company was shifting like a massive groaning ship changing course mid-storm. Some resisted, some grumbled, but most breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Like a long-held breath had finally been released. Angela Brown, once invisible behind her spreadsheets, was called into a meeting with the CFO and offered the role of Director of Financial Planning. Not because she networked, not because she went to office parties, but because she'd already been doing the work quietly, excellently, and without complaint. When the promotion was announced publicly, her coworkers stood and applauded. Not the kind of forced clapping people do at a memo briefing, but real applause. Heartfelt. Loud. Angela, stunned, blinked back tears as she looked around the room. And when she returned home that night, she told her son Isaiah, "Your mom didn't have to change who she was to succeed. She just had to wait until someone finally saw her." Ruben Mehta and Elaine Morris were reinstated into major innovation projects, projects they had once built the foundation for, but were quietly pushed out of. Danielle made it a point to invite them into a high-level brainstorming session on senior technology accessibility. She introduced them by name and called them the roots of our success. Elaine smiled so widely it brought Jared to tears. Ruben simply said, "It's been a long time since someone asked me what I thought." And Jared Thompson was named Corporate Culture Ambassador, a role created for him, but built from everything he already was. He didn't just lead workshops and meetings. He led with kindness, with his signature easy grin and humble way of listening. One day when Danielle asked him how it felt, Jared chuckled. "I don't care about the title," he said, "but if this helps others get seen faster than I did, it's worth every second." The biggest surprise, perhaps, was Leah Stone. After her public reckoning, many assumed she'd resign. But Danielle gave her a choice: leave in shame or stay and change from within. To everyone's astonishment, Leah chose to stay. She joined the new mentorship program for marginalized employees, not as its director, but as its student. Every day for the first 2 months, Leah met with employees she had once overlooked. She listened. She asked questions. She took notes. And one morning during an empathy training session, Leah stood up in front of 45 young managers and said, "I used to think strength meant never apologizing, but now I know it's being brave enough to look someone in the eye and say, 'I was wrong.'" Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. "I was wrong, and I'm still learning." She received a standing ovation. The changes didn't stop there. Novacor launched its emergency employee fund in record time. Terrence Carter, the longtime maintenance worker who once cried quietly in the boiler room, was its first recipient. The company helped pay off his medical debts, restructure his mortgage, and ensure his wife received the treatment she needed. When Terrence returned to work, he brought cupcakes for the whole floor. "I thought I was going to lose everything," he told his team, "but now I feel like I belong to something worth keeping." Each week, Danielle hosted table talks with the CEO. No scripts, no PR, just a table in the cafeteria and 8-10 employees from different departments invited at random. People spoke. Danielle listened. Sometimes she laughed, sometimes she cried, but she never missed a session. One day a cafeteria worker said, "I never thought I'd have lunch with the CEO." Danielle smiled. "I never thought I'd cry over a sandwich." Life surprises us both, and there were many surprises to come. The company's quarterly review showed that productivity had actually increased not because of pressure, but because of pride. Employees felt ownership. They felt heard. Turnover dropped. Customer satisfaction rose. And something more important happened. Employees started helping each other without being asked. In the break room, junior engineers began inviting Elaine to sit with them. Ruben was asked to mentor a group of interns. Angela got flowers from her team after she successfully led her first department-wide audit. And Jared launched an internal campaign called Every Name Matters, a video series featuring employees from every floor, every background, every voice. But the moment that defined the new Novacore came quietly. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon. Danielle had just finished a table talk session and was walking down the hallway when she saw something that made her stop. Marcus Green had returned. He was pushing his cart slowly, carefully, and standing beside him, mop in hand, was a young product designer. Laughing, asking him about proper wax ratios for tile. Danielle watched them for a moment, her eyes filling again. This wasn't the company she had built years ago. This was the company she had rediscovered through humility, through discomfort, and through the eyes of the people she once overlooked. Later that evening, as she left her office, she passed the giant new mural in the lobby. It read, "Respect, listen, innovate." And beneath it, photos of Angela with her son cutting the ribbon for the new Employee Wellness Center. Jared handing out welcome kits to new hires. Ruben giving a keynote at a tech inclusion conference. Leah sitting in a circled notebook open, listening to a janitor speak. And in the center, Danielle, not standing at a podium, but seated on the floor cross-legged, laughing with her team. The pedestal was gone. In its place was a circle, a community. And that's how you change the soul of a company. If you've stayed with me until now, thank you. This story of Danielle Whitman and of Novacore is more than just corporate drama. It's a mirror, one that reflects how easy it is to become so focused on success that we forget who we pass in the hallway. The janitor, the assistant, the older employee sitting alone at lunch. We talk a lot about leadership, don't we? About strategy, growth, expansion. But real leadership isn't about how high you sit. It's about how low you're willing to go, how deep you're willing to listen, how far you're willing to reach back and lift someone else up. Danielle didn't change her company with a memo or a marketing campaign. She changed it by walking in someone else's shoes, by scrubbing her own floors, by letting herself feel what others had been carrying all along. And what she discovered is something all of us can carry too, that kindness is not a weakness. That quiet people often hold the loudest truths, and that sometimes the strongest leaders are the ones who dare to step down from the spotlight, not to leave it behind, but to shine it where it's needed most. So wherever you work, whatever title you hold, ask yourself, are you seeing everyone or just the ones who fit your frame? Because justice in the end begins with acknowledgement, and real power, it listens.